thinking, punk. Question is, can I get Wolverine before he turns me into shish kebab with those claws? Bob, seeing as how these claws are adamantium, the strongest metal known, and can slice through vanadium steel like a hot knife through butter, buddy, you gotta ask yourself, do I feel lucky?
Hello everyone, thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books, I love talking about them, and I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that I have plot synopsis and character bios for these issues. We're going to be looking at Marvel Comics Presents 1 through 10. We're only going to be looking at the Wolverine sections, written by Chris Claremont, drawn by John Buscema, and inked by Klaus Janson. All the issues. So, real quick, Marvel Comics Presents lasted a long time. I think about 150 issues. And it was a bi-weekly series. So it came out every 2 weeks. So each issue gave you 4 stories. The main story was Wolverine, and except for about 20 no, not even 20, probably about, there was a Colossus story and there was one more, but then Wolverine was the main character for most of its run. So I'll say about 120 issues of the Marvel Comics Presents run featured Wolverine. And so it was every 2 weeks. And so the Wolverine, every story was 8 pages long. Okay? No ads. It was really fun. When I first saw this, I just couldn't wait. I thought this was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And this came out in the summer of '88. And so I had was going from 8th grade to 9th grade that summer, and this is something that I saw. I was a huge Simonson fan by this time. From him doing Thor, and this cover just grabbed me, and then seeing Wolverine inside. This is essentially his very first solo story, you could say. I mean, other than the Wolverine Limited series, so his second solo story. Wolverine was the coolest member of the X-Men. This was a double, so the front features Wolverine, and then you had the backside, which features the other characters that were involved in this issue. I think the Master of Kung Fu will also be a story that was running parallel to this. That was something very cool about Marvel Comics Presents. But like I said, we are only looking at the Wolverine story. But you can see here Silver Surfer, Man-Thing, and the Master of Kung Fu. Here, great cover by Simonson. Absolutely awesome. So, here we go. As I mentioned, Chris Claremont is the writer. John Buscema is the penciler, and Klaus Janson is the inker for this entire thing. Although the letterer will change. Orzechowski, I think, starts it, but then it goes with other people. And we see Wolverine in Madripoor, which is going to be the first time Madripoor is used. And he lets you know that Madripoor is an island nation south of Singapore. It is made up. It does not exist. It is a comic book thing. And so there's Uptown, which is the modern part, and then Lowtown, which is where all the crime stuff happens. So it says the tourists stay at Hightown, but Lowtown is where your dives are, where your decadence and all this stuff here. So All right, we see these guys coming in here to the Princess Bar. The Princess Bar will be very important for the Wolverine run that's coming on. They're roughing up all these people here. So Wolverine walks into this Princess Bar. He's looking for a guy named O'Donnell and sees these people in there. And they're like, you should have stayed out. And he's like, I'm thirsty. This is a saloon. And so he rushes Wolverine. He punches him. These guys go after him. You can see Wolverine is dealing with them. Now this these 10 issues, so 10 issues, 8 pages each, so 80 pages of a story. They are full of Chris Claremont love for verbosity, which he does. This is narrated in first person, so Wolverine narrates the story. But there's also there's a lot of action and a lot of talky talk and exposition. So I'm sure Claremont had a blast writing this. So this guy comes through to attack him. Of course, Wolverine's body is laced with adamantium, as Chris Claremont loves to tell people here, and his bones can't be broken. I have a playlist for Wolverine. Feel free to check that out. I've included the 2 origin stories, and Weapon X is in there. So Wolverine punches this guy. This guy takes out his gun, but then somebody disposes of that guy. And so of course this guy's like, freeze, Yankee. He's like, I'm Canadian. So he's like, don't do anything or I'm gonna kill her. And Wolverine gets his hat, puts it on, and says, go ahead, pull the trigger. But after you do, you're mine. And he runs away. Everybody's happy that he rescued everybody here. And so this is O'Donnell here. And he's like, I'm obliged. And Wolverine's like, I said I was thirsty. He says, whatever you want is on the house. And so this redhead is going to be very important to the story. Gives him a kiss. And she's like, well, if you're ever feeling lonely while you're here, I'm Sapphire. And he's like, what brings you to Madripoor? And Wolverine says, word is, if you want information, the place to find it is the Princess Bar. And O'Donnell says, could be, depends on the question and who asks. And he says, Dave Chappelle sent me to find the tiger. And of course, they all pull their weapons. And O'Donnell says, that's real interesting considering Dave Chappelle is dead. And Wolverine is like, so much for the direct approach. All right, so that concludes the Wolverine part of this issue. We will go straight to the number 2, which again features Master of Kung Fu and Man-Thing, but the captain, Alex Saviuk and Klaus Janson, draw this cover here. So this is going to be the main antagonist for the book here, which is Roche, Roche. Maybe it's Rock. I really don't know, but I've always said Roche. And you see Orzakowski's lettering here. And so he's going to be talking to the people that were attacking the bar. Now, I'm going to make a comment on I love the dry brush being employed here. But I'm going to make a comment on Klaus Janson's inking throughout the story. It felt rushed, full of energy. Nothing like what he was doing with Frank Miller on Daredevil or Dark Knight Returns. I don't know if he picked up some of Frank Miller's what would I say, energy, because Frank Miller seems to draw quickly like Bill Sienkiewicz, and there's like a Bill Sienkiewicz-ism to Klaus Janson's inking on this series, and I think he inked very quickly. I mean, it looks real, but you can just tell it looks sort of messy, like a Bill Sienkiewicz does. So I don't know if he was in a pinch or but it just looks very fast. Hardly any details on anything. And Buscema, Was a more of a layout guy by this time anyway. Um, he had some health issues going on. He would pass away a few years after this. I mean, a few years. But yeah. So there's something about how this thing was inked. So I want to call that out, that it is definitely rushed, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you can definitely tell that there is a lot of details not being put in. And you just very like just I don't know, just putting marks wherever. And so I just it just feels like he picked up some of Frank Miller's mannerisms, possibly during Dark Knight Returns and that kind of stuff here. So anyway, um, uh, Roche. So would you say Roche or Rock? I don't know. I will be saying Roche, although there's no U, so it could be Rock. You know what? I'm gonna say Rock. So I could be wrong, but all right. Anyway, so these are the people that Wolverine dealt with, and he's like, I sent you there to go get information on the tiger, and you are my hands, the public image of my strength. If you lose respect, I do too. And they're like, oh, give us another chance. You know, if it wasn't for that guy, we would have done it. And he says, I have already engaged an enforcer to take your place. If you defeat him, you may remain in my service. And so he brings this guy by the name of Razor Fist. Very, I don't know, very something. So they're going to go get him. And he's like, oh, it's one guy. We can take him. It's easy. And the other guy was like, we couldn't take him. The other guy. And this guy's like, shut up, fool. So he goes in here and kills this guy, then kills this guy. This guy jumps in the air. He kills him, throws him there. The other guy jumps on him and he kills him. And this guy's like, shit. All right. Everybody gone in seconds. And he's like, that's not going to happen. You're going to be my ticket out of here. I'll gut you where you stand. And so Rock, I guess I decided what we would call him Rock, hits him in the hand, picks him up in the air, and kills him and drops him in the pond. Now, for some reason, it's looking like piranhas, but these are koi. They don't do that anyway. All right, so they're gonna send him to the Princess Bar and wants to know about that Tiger, the upstart who is going to challenge me. Now, if you already know who it is, you won't be surprised. But if you don't know who Tiger is, you're going to be very surprised. So everybody now from the previous issue brings their guns, and he's like, he was killed, and suddenly you show up, and Wolverine's like, hey, I saved you guys. He's like, tell us. So he says, fair enough. I found Chappelle in the desert. He'd been tortured by an expert whose wounds and exposure finished him. And he tosses this locket with a picture here. He asked me to return this keepsake. And so O'Donnell says this cameos the lady this place is named after and her partner. She'll be glad to get it. But I get the feeling, chum, you're not telling me everything. Wolverine says, I'm not. And he's like, suit yourself, says Wolverine. You want to make a play, be prepared to take the consequences. So everybody's aiming at him, but they put the guns away, and they're like, all right. So Wolverine, again, she introduces herself, and Wolverine sees the reflection in the mirror, and he's like, hey, I know who that is. She runs away. Wolverine goes after her, and he gets her scent. Again, Chris Claremont lets us know he's a mutant with keen senses. So, all right. So he goes through and gets there, and he's like, I gotcha. How about you and me have ourselves a chat? She tries to run and hits him, but it doesn't work. And then Wolverine sees her and says, I know you, Janson Horn. That's at least how I said it. Now, Here comes the cover, the next cover for issue number 3. Now we have the Master of Kung Fu still. A Thing story, and the Man Thing is still also running here, and they're going to kill this dog here. Oh. Anyway, so we see John Romita Jr. with Bob Wyacek do this cover. All right. And so Janson Johannes, you're going to see here, they're going to do an explanation. Wolverine can't believe it's her. And she, of course, was in X-Men 230. Oh, the first Reavers. Let's see, 228, 229, I think. All right. Anyway, so she, of course, worked at a bank that was attacked by the Reavers, and the X-Men helped save her. And this is what I mean. Look at Storm. Look at this. It's a mouth and eyes. Very I don't know. This almost seems like a Rush job. Not at all. But there's an energy to this, but some people would probably say it's not very well drawn, which is, I don't know. You've got a master in John Buscema, and you've got one of the most respected inkers. So, anyway, the Reavers and Janson Hoan went through the Siege Perilous, and this is Roma, and so Janson is like, "You're mistaken. I've never seen you before. I'm not the person you say. Let me go." And Wolverine's like, "Not without answers." And she's like, "I have none to give." And so she's gonna get away. Gives him some, I don't know, dust in his eyes, trips him here. He gets hit by a car. She runs away, pushes this guy, takes his bike, and as Wolverine gets up, she kicks him again. Oh my gosh. And Wolverine is like, "Oh my God," and he says, "I can't help but laugh because she kicked his butt." And so here comes that, oh my gosh, Sapphire. And he's like, "Hey, perhaps your luck's about to change." And Wolverine says, "Maybe I should quit while I'm ahead." And she, of course, says, "Hey, my place is by if you'd like to tidy up and relax." But he says there's something about her scent. And so Wolverine says he appreciates the invite, but he's committed elsewhere. And Wolverine's like, "Whoever she is, she's lucky." And goes, and she says, "Sapphire Sticks doesn't take no for an answer." Real quick, beautiful screen tones being applied. Anyway, she gives Wolverine a kiss, and he's like, "Oh my God, she's like consuming me." And what she's doing is she's taking his life force. She also has powers. So Wolverine tries to pull away, and then he's weak, and then Razor Fist attacks him and hits him. And it turns out that she works for Rock as well. So they want Wolverine. So very Sienkiewicz-like panels right here. All right. Al Milgram and P. Craig Russell do this one. We still have Man-Thing and Shang-Chi, the Master of Kung Fu, with a Thor story. So, all right. Here we go. All right, now Wolverine is captive here for Rock here. And here comes Sapphire and gives him another kiss, which of course starts draining him, weakening him again. And here comes Rock, and he's all weak. And so Rock wants to ask him questions here. And this is his Inquisitor here. And he's going to make sure Wolverine answers his questions using pain. So Wolverine's like, "I suppose I have nothing to tell." And Rock's like, "For your sake, I pray that is not so." And so the next morning at the Princess Bar here, so Janson Hoan comes through here, and she's looking for, she says, "Hey, I'm told the stranger who helped is in Rock's hand," and O'Donnell's like, "Too bad, I liked him." He's like, who was he?" And he's like, "I don't know." And so it is Jessen Hoan here. Um, and so she doesn't remember since going through the Siege Perilous. And she goes, I'd never seen him before, but he knew me from the old days. And O'Donnell's like, who were you, Jess? Not who you are. You can't tell Rock anything that can harm you. And Jess says, then he will die, O'Donnell, as Dave Chappelle did. I couldn't save the one. How can I abandon the other? And O'Donnell says, ever stop to consider that may be precisely what Rock is counting on doing something noble and stupid? And she says, once so long ago I would have, without a second thought, but those days are gone. That woman is no more, and the saddest thing, I don't even miss her. So now we are on the end of that day, and there Wolverine says nothing, and he's down and out, and they're like, forget it, get rid of him. And so this guy is like, I'm going to enjoy breaking you. And so they all leave, which is precisely what Wolverine wants. And he takes out his claws and gets out. But then he doesn't have much strength and he falls. So he walks out, and of course Razor Fist knew that. And Wolverine's going to fight him. But he is very weak, and Razor Fist, of course, who would I don't know. This seems like a pain in the ass to have knives for hands, but hey. All right, he deals with Wolverine, throws him in the water, thinks he killed him. He's like, you made a worthy foe. I salute you. All right, and so we get this cover here. So this cover is by John Buscema and Klaus Janson. And so most of this is a dream. And so Wolverine's sort of remembering the story so far, sort of like this. So I am, so she's like a psychic vampire is how it's being described here. And again, this is all a dream. Falling down, but eventually he comes up. He thinks of his foster daughter, Akiko, and Mariko, her guardian. And Wolverine thinks he's gonna die. He says, Miko, end of the road. Wish I could see you, though. Hold you, kiss you one last time. But, of course, someone jumps in, and it's Jessen, and she grabs him, and she's like, he weighs so much as, of course, his bones, and gets him in the water, or in the boat, and she's like, God, his wounds, have I risked my life only to rescue a corpse? He thinks it's Mariko, but of course realizes it's Jessen, and they're gonna go into the open sea. And he attacks her. He's like, he thinks it's Roche, and he's having issues. He takes out his claws, but then he falls. I like this panel. I really do. Of course, she nurses him to health, and he's back. And she remembers him, and he says, thank you for saving me, Wolverine. And so he realizes that now she knows who he is. All right. And so we are now halfway through. This cover is also by Buscema and Janson. All right. So here comes Wolverine. Looking very Jack Sparrow-ish. And Jessen here. And so we are going to get the origin again. But she says the reason she is because of the way Pretty Boy had apparently wired her different. And even though Roma returned, she still had those impulses. And she said that the board of directors and her own family thought that it was suspicious that everyone died except her. And then she realized she didn't care about letting it go. but she wanted to deal with the Reavers, and he's like, hey, we took care of them. And she realized she couldn't get hired anywhere. Nobody, despite the fact that she had all the qualifications. And so after trying, she realized that she just maybe didn't care about that anymore. So she decided she wanted to know who was pulling the strings, what had happened. And so she goes to the Meridian Bank. How she broke in is beyond. That's okay. It's comic books. This guy comes in here, and she realized she knew martial arts, which she really never knew, but now she does. And decided that someone had hired the Reavers, and so the bank, they wanted to get rid of her. So this other bank here, the Meridian Bank, wanted to get rid of the Horn Bank, and so they went to Rock, and Rock went to the Reavers. So Rock is still in there. She says when she would go to Madripoor, she always stayed in Uptown and never been to Lowtown, and says Lowtown is a mess. And so she comes through and starts saying she's the Tiger. So this is her. So she actually becomes the Tiger, and you're gonna when Wolverine gets his own series, you're gonna see kind of the story dealing with her and them and the whole thing. So she wants to take Rock's place and become the crime lord. But not necessarily just because crime needs an outlet. You can't just eliminate crime because that's just can't happen. But she perhaps by being a good person, she can control it. So she wants Wolverine to help him, and so she will. He jumps in, and then all the people on her boat are dead, and she hears a sound and sees that there's someone still alive, but there's a bomb there, and boom. So, all right, here we go. Covered by Bob Layton here, and we've got still Master of Kung Fu, still the Man-Thing, Wolverine, but a solo Submariner story here. So, all right. Now it's Wolverine saving her. And of course, what had happened. Because, hey, Jim Shooter always said it could be everybody's first comic book. So she goes through and holds them because there's somebody looking for them. And so they use the cover of the night to get into the dock here. And so she says we're in the clear, and because he smelled it here. So, all right. And so he says here, you're the Tiger, the baby crime lord who's challenging Rock for control of the Madripoor underworld. Only it looks like Rock has decided to end the war quick as he can. You've got two options, cut and run or fight. And so she says, you don't have to fight for me. I am I had saved your life, and so she felt Wolverine owed him, but now he saved her life. That cancels her debts. You're free to go. Wolverine's like, nope, I'm gonna help you. So here comes Madame Joy. They're protected by Tiger. He throws her off, but she doesn't die because he only threw her off one story. And so this lady prostitute here is running for the cops, and he's like, the cops, and they're counting their money. They've been taken care of, and so they're going around, and they're like, be brave. It'll be over before you know it. But Jess and Juan gets there and saves them, and Wolverine's there to help. Again, very messy inking. And he says, I want information. And the guy spits on him. And he's like, all right, if I can't persuade you to talk, I bet you I know someone who can. And points that way. And the ladies, and they're like, we'll make him sing and like a canary. He's like, I'll talk. Rock knows who the Tiger is. Gonna make an example of his execution. Yeah. It's that saloon keeper O'Donnell, and they're like, "Where is he?" So they realize that they got O'Donnell. He's in Rock's place. So and he's like, O'Donnell isn't the tiger, and then he's like, "Grr," as she stabs him, and so of course she says, "Hey, you promised Wolverine, I did not." And she says, Rock will get the same. So they've got O'Donnell, so now they're going to go get him. And so this guy's going to try to kill him, but he does not. And he's like, I'm going to make you suffer. Your torment hasn't begun. I'm going to teach you once and for all who the master is. So Rock thinks O'Donnell is the tiger. And so issue number 8, Charles Vess is the cover artist here. So here we go. They're going to go break into Rock's estate. And Wolverine finally wears that black costume that is going to be part of his early stories when he's in Madripoor. So here we go. Wolverine dealing with them. And Chris Claremont putting in every word possible here. And so he short circuits the lights here by cutting the things. It got boots on, barefoot here. Who knows? Coloring mistake. And so there's Janson Hawaiian coming. So here we go. All right. So they release the dogs. Wolverine growls at them, and they're like, "Oh my God!" So the people shoot at him. And of course he's Wolverine, and they don't know it's Wolverine. So here is that vampire lady draining him. She shoots her, and suddenly someone grabs her gun, and it's this this guy, and realizes that she's the tiger. Love this. Wolverine just leaving a pile of bodies there. And Razorfist says, "I'm glad that you survived." So we're going to have another round, because he says the only way to get to Rock is over my dead body. So we're gonna have that. By the way, this is like fishnet. So when you see these, it's kind of like a mask that he's wearing here. So all right. When I was small or younger, I really thought that was Bill Sienkiewicz. But I looked it up, and it was someone named Brian Murray. So you can see that we still have the Man-Thing, but we now have 2 solo stories, Cloak and El Aguila. So no longer have the story with Master of Kung Fu, but we still have the Man-Thing story. All right. And so here comes Wolverine versus Razor Fist Part 2. And so, of course, we still have the fight here. There's really a lot of the words and writing here is just for exposition here. So we really don't need to worry about what is being said here. We can actually just look at the action here. So fight. And so knocks him out, picks him up, but Wolverine gets him. And I don't know why he didn't pop his claws. He should have. And so Janson Hawaiian is like getting that guy. And of course the vampire is still there. And she's like, "I wouldn't worry about him, Tiger." And so she Sapphire grabs her and throws her. And she's gonna use her power on her. Continue with the fight between Wolverine and Razor Fist. And so Sapphire's about to use her power, and she wakes up, and she's like, "No," and bites her in the throat. And she's like, "I am the tiger," and then gets her. So all right, these 2 managed to get away, and I think that they'll be back in the Wolverine regular series. So and he's like, this fight's gonna be over, and Wolverine pops his claws like right. So here we go, and Wolverine gets him and kills him, and so he's like, now it's Rock's turn. And so we get to the last issue, the conclusion, and so we still have Man-Thing, and we got Machine Man, and Colossus, which is going to continue after this. It's the Colossus will get a couple of stories, and Cyclops gets a couple of stories, but then I think Wolverine comes back. So, all right. And so here we go. Mike Harris is the cover artist. All right. So here we go. Not bad. 80 pages in about 40 minutes here. So, all right. Here we go. They're going to help O'Donnell out. He's like, man, I've had some scraps before. Here comes Rock and shoots Wolverine. Does not know that Wolverine can't die. Of course, they don't seem to know that, and Janson Juan is not happy, so she beheads. Of course, you can do the slash, but you can't show it, so here's the head. So she kills him and thinks Wolverine is dead, and so she is leaving him, and so he gets up. He's like, better that she thinks I'm dead for now, but that's not going to last very long, because he's like, I need to go back to the X-Men, but I like it here. And so the Princess Bar, Janson Juan, and so Tyger Tiger has taken over the underworld, and someone comes in. Of course, she's like, you alive, and it is Wolverine. And so now Wolverine is going to call himself Patch while he is in Madripoor. And so they're going to work together, and she's going to, keep her word. You're not going to turn into that other guy. He's going to be like her conscience. And so she takes her blade, and you see a little slash, and she also slashes herself, and they make a blood deal. And so you can see here that they kind of form a little relationship, and it says the beginning. So that's it. This is sort of the start of the Wolverine regular series. Came from this, and we're going to have the same creative team for a little bit with the Wolverine regular series. So Marvel Comics presents 1 through 10, the Wolverine stories. Chris Claremont is our writer. John Buscema penciled it, and then Klaus Janson is the inker. Although I think it's more of breakdowns and finishes personally. But anyway, like and subscribe, and I do thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.